Hello and welcome. Today I am joined by Lynsey, who is a sick female drummer. Of course, we have to specify that you're a female drummer because
Yes.
that's how it works. So yeah, if you'd just like to introduce yourself, who you are, what do you do in terms of music?
I'm Lynsey, as you've said.
Yes.
And I play drums in a couple of bands. So I play for Boxcar Mavericks, which is a 5-piece sort of Americana rock group based in Gloucester. And then I also play for Death is a Girl, who are like a funky, groovy rock trio from Cheltenham, fronted by much loved Joe Green.
Yeah, Joe Green. I feel that Death is a Girl are so hard to describe, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like they rock with like really funky grooves and
His voice is insane as well.
yeah,
Joe's
a
great.
very big range there.
Yeah. We love Joe. He gave us our first show. Down and out.
Yay!
Yeah.
He's such a good guy.
Yeah, he's cool. So yeah, how did you get into music in general, but specifically drumming?
So at school there was kind of like different instrument groups that you could choose from, and I just remember that the drum kit was kind of off limits for a long time when we were in like the early years of school. So like naturally that one made me want to like play it more. I guess because it's different to the other instruments. Like we were playing things like xylophones and like glockenspiels and stuff. It was just like, I already played this at primary school. This is boring to me now. And then like we did have like access to guitars and things, which I did also play at school. But I don't know. I think because it's just such a different instrument and you like play it with like all your limbs, it's like just like a really active, like fun like activity as well as instrument to play. So I think that's what drew me to that particular instrument, was just that it was different to what I was used to playing and seeing.
Yeah, because I feel like drums isn't an often played instrument. Like not even just for girls, just in general. Were you a hyperactive child by any chance?
I wouldn't have said so, but there is like some footage of me and my sister like chasing each other around the living room when I'm about like 2 and I've got a washing basket on my head and I'm just I'm like running around in a circle like screaming my head off. But I think it's normal for children to have that energy. I don't think I was hyperactive or anything.
I was just curious because I feel like a lot of drummers were like, yeah, I was hyperactive, but then some people were just like, nah. So I was just interested to see if it's a pattern or not.
Yeah, I don't think I was hyperactive.
To be fair, it can go either way, can't it? Because like it can either be like, yeah, I'm hyperactive, so I'm going to play the drums, but it could also be like, I'm hyperactive, so I can't focus to play the drums. I don't know.
I think it's a good instrument to play actually if you're shy, because you get to hide at the back.
Yeah.
You just put your cymbals as high as you want and no one will see you.
And you still get to be the loudest as well.
Yeah.
You get the best of both worlds.
Yes, definitely.
I do wish I could play drums, but so I'm in awe of people who can play drums because I just don't have the coordination for it.
I've seen you play drums before.
I can do it very, very basically, but I couldn't do anything like impressive or I don't know, useful. I wouldn't be able to be like, I'm going to go into the studio and play everything, including drums. I'd be like, no, I'm going to need somebody to do that for me. But I don't know, maybe if I ever get the chance, I would like to learn. It'd be cool. So I've phrased this weirdly, but I think you'll know what I mean. Because I said like gender balance on your course/job, but I mean like in terms of
in like music projects.
Yeah, like other drummers and bands and the scene in general and stuff you've got.
So the first band I played in, because I only ever really played music for myself when I was an adult, and then I didn't get into playing with bands until I was in Cheltenham, because they've got like a good local music scene, and I didn't know that like regular people could be in bands. I don't know why I didn't know that, but then I was kind of like, oh yeah, I could do this then. So that's when I joined. Obviously, like we used to play together in The More You Know.
Yeah.
So obviously that group actually had more women. Like at the time we were in it had more women than men. So we were kind of like reign supreme there. And then I went to Boxcars, and that's 3 guys and 2 women, and then obviously Death as a Girl, there's 3 of us and 1 woman. So I've never, obviously it's physically impossible for me to be in a band that doesn't have a woman in it if I'm in the band, but been like quite lucky, I think. And I, until like you kind of started like asking me about like, oh, what like do you think of like when you go to see bands, etc., like what the balance is like there. Like I guess I never really noticed it until I stopped and thought about it. But yeah, when I actually go and see bands, or when we're playing alongside other bands, there's definitely like a lot more men amongst the groups than women. Like you might see a group that's got like a female member or like a couple, but like with The More You Know, like we were on the bill with act where like we'd be like the only different one, because we actually had like quite a lot of women compared to like some of the other bands that didn't have any. So yeah, I did start to notice it more after that, like, oh yeah, there are a lot more like sort of guys in bands than women, but I don't really know why that is.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because it is often just one, and it's like, is that a case of, I mean, it's not a case of women not being interested in it, because obviously they are, like we are, and we know a lot of other women musicians who are obviously interested in it. But I guess maybe some people, I don't know, don't feel as comfortable, or maybe aren't as encouraged as maybe we have been. It's a strange one, because obviously I wouldn't say, I mean, none of the men that I've ever played with have ever had an issue with me playing and being a girl, because I wouldn't play with them if they did.
Yeah, same.
So, but I think I've been the same as you, where I've kind of always been in bands with other women, so I haven't actually experienced being the only woman in a band. So I couldn't speak to what it's like to be the sole female. But yeah, like I think it's interesting to think about, because I can't pinpoint why exactly it is more men. I don't know, because you would think even now, when it's like supposedly more acceptable, that there would be more, and there are more, but you think there'd be much more balance than there is. But
then you look at like bands, like signed bands, like in the charts, like especially like pop music, and then there are quite a lot of women there. So maybe we just don't see it in the bands we play in, because they're sort of like rock or like punk rock, or like very like rock basically. Maybe it's a strange one.
I think I've spoken to somebody else about that as well, actually, how it's odd that I don't know if it's odd, but like pop is a lot more diverse than stuff like rock and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's a bit of like gatekeepy, because pop is often like associated with women, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just like a manly thing to be like, oh, I don't like pop, but I don't know what the reason is for that. Whether it's like, oh, there's a lot of women in it, so it's kind of dismissed, or whatever, or it's not heavy, so it's dismissed. I don't know like the roots of those opinions, but I do know they exist. And that's what I'm interested in, because I'm just like, why though?
But then some pop music, not all, but like can be like more sort of like manufactured, if that's the phrase that they use. So that could be like labels strategically like choosing like balance or women depending on who they're kind of targeting, whereas like regular people, they get into bands like play with their friends, will play with their friends regardless of their friends might all be men. I don't know.
No, I totally agree. There's definitely a manufactured aspect to it. of knowing that maybe a woman is more marketable for like sex appeal and shit like that, when, you know, when it's literally just like all right, well, she's attractive and she can sing to a level, so we'll pop her out and see how that does with the audience, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit less prominent now. I think pop has started to get a bit more, I don't know, a little bit more authenticity, because there's a lot more kind of crossover and shit, and I think people are a little bit more aware of that manufactured thing. But yeah, I definitely think you're right. There is still like that aspect of, she's pretty, we'll see if we can market her to an audience.
Yeah.
I guess following on from that, are there any women that you can think of in your life who, they can be people you know, like I'm more asking about people you know, but also just any sort of role models. They could be famous or whatever. But women in your life who were role models or encouraged your interest in music at all?
Well, it's interesting because literally every single teacher at my primary school was female. Like, we didn't have any male teachers, apart from, I think there was this one guy who used to come in to coach like the football club or something. And then even when I went to high school, like, there was some male teachers there, but there was like massive amount of like women teachers. So yeah, like most of my like role models in like that educational phase would have all been like women, and like we had like some really lovely teachers at school that were encouraging. Like even outside the music department, I had teachers that encouraged me with like music and creative things. So like, yeah, they definitely have an influence on like me playing music. And then like more sort of famous people, like some of my favorite drummers are Cindy Blackman, who she was Lenny Kravitz's drummer for a long time, and she's just.
Did she play for Santana as well, or am I thinking?
Yeah, she married to.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's really cool, and I actually, the drumsticks I use are her like signature ones, and they're nice because they kind of have the weight of like the normal stick size that I'd use, but they're a bit like longer. I don't know if it's for like the style that she plays, but yeah, they're just really nice to play with. They give you a bit more reach. And I also loved Adrian Young, who's No Doubt's drummer. And he had like sort of like lots of ska styles and influence in his playing without being like full on ska. He had just like a really like interesting style to how he played, and he'd like super presence on stage as well. Really funky drum kits that he's had over the years. Just been like, why can't my drums look like that?
I love that. I love the level of envy where it's like, I want to be like you, not like I hate you because you're good, but like I do hate you because you're good, but it's because I want to be like you.
Yeah, definitely.
That's sick. Actually, I only actually recently found out about Cindy Blackman, and she seems really cool. I need to listen to more of. I didn't realize she played with Lenny Kravitz. I knew she'd played with Santana, but that's awesome because I like Lenny Kravitz too. And it's another case of like that style of music is usually really white, so it's nice to see like people of color get like being big role models in that, because they deserve a lot more recognition than they get, don't they?
And I also really like that. So she managed to, you know, stand out at a time where, I don't know if you remember, like Lenny Kravitz, some of the crazy things he used to wear. So he had this kind of like gold cat suit thing with like like massive platform like block shoes with his dreads, and he'd like sometimes wear it with like a fur waistcoat and all these crazy outfits. So he's like center of the stage, so like people obviously be like looking at him, but she still managed to like stand out with like her style and playing, with all these people looking at this crazy man dressed in like gold clothing. So that's a pretty like cool like thing to be able to do, and that's like a similar reason why I also like Jonathan Moffat, he was Michael Jackson's drummer, and he was George Michael drummer, and Madonna's drummer as well for a while. But it's the same with him. Like, imagine being a musician in the band for like a massive artist like Madonna and Michael Jackson, and still managing to like capture the crowd like with your playing. And he's like he does like some crazy things as well. He does these like over the arm sort of cymbal grabs, and his cymbals are set up like almost like backwards, and he'll be like smashing the front ones and choking them, and then honestly he's just really impressive.
I'm getting like images of Animal from the Muppets, just like all over.
Yeah, but like much more. You have to go and watch like some of his YouTube videos. I'll send you a link. But
yeah, please do. That sounds really cool.
What? Like, because you can't even see what's behind him, and he never misses. It's insane, muscle memory. Honestly. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, it's something else. It really kind of shows how skilled someone is when they can stand out like that. When they are kind of, especially
like in the background.
When you're playing like the kind of overlooked instruments like drums and bass, where people don't really think about them that much unless they maybe play them themselves. It's usually like the singer and the lead guitarist who get like that big attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to stand out, especially when you're playing behind big artists and playing the overlooked instruments, I think really, really shows some like how skill can really speak for itself. That's awesome. You've got some really cool role models. I'm just so like, I like this and this because it's nice. And you're like, oh no, like these guys are incredible. I'm like, okay, I'm interested.
That's like feel like a bit like inspired and like, oh, that's really cool. Like when I go out to like more local sort of shows and see like bands that like are like more local to like where I am, and just being like, more kind of like regular people that have like their day jobs, like us like playing in bands, and seeing like women play with them and just being like, oh cool, that's really cool. Especially like when you like maybe even like know people who know them, so they're actually like closer to you than you think. You'd be like, oh.
I think it's really, really important actually to see people at your own level as well, or a similar level to you, because it kind of shows you that, I could reach that level, and then there's like a band that's maybe a little bit higher than them, like, oh, if we reach that level, then we could reach that level, and it's just a little bit of like a domino effect, I suppose, isn't it? I think it's really important to have like those sort of role models or influences on all levels, because like it shows you that it's not impossible to do it. And then, like you said, like the people who are doing it as well for just the passion of doing it, rather than like, we're doing this to get big and be famous and make money. Like some people are just content to be like, I'm doing this because I love to do it. And that's really good as well. So we've spoken a little bit about it, but I don't know if there's anything specific you want to talk about in terms of your experiences of being in mixed bands. I know I say
they're all been pretty like positive. Being in mixed bands for me, because it's like with anything, if you have a good mix of different types of people, and like Boxcar is a good example because we're actually all like really mixed ages as well. So I'm actually like 20 plus years younger than some of them, but it gives like different perspectives. But then I would also say that the challenge of being in a mixed band, with like men and women, is, I guess, sometimes like when it comes to making decisions, it can be like difficult to make sure everyone's heard, and sometimes that's where, as a like women, I might be a bit like I have to like explain myself more but then I think that could be like a age thing, it could be a personality thing, it could be an experience thing, like maybe I've not been in a group as long as some other people, but that's like a tough thing, I think, is if like the boys are like calling the shots, and like have to, like most of the bands that I played in have like made sure to like listen to everybody and like make decisions together. But sometimes I feel like if we are making decisions, like I might have to, I don't know, like give proof or like really explain like why like I think what I think. But I feel like maybe some of like the guys would just have to say like one sentence and we'd be like, oh yeah, fine.
Yeah, we'll do that. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the thing where somebody's kind of said the same idea as you but worded it differently? And then you've been like, that's what I said.
Yeah, I've also had the thing, it's like you say something and then someone kind of says, oh yeah, I was just going to say that actually. Like, no, you weren't. Like, I've been thinking this for about 3 hours trying to work out how to say it. You're just jumping on it. Or like, oh yeah, like, that's what I think too. Like, well, how come you didn't say it already?
I was going to say, if you were going to say it, you would have said it.
Yeah, like, why have you been silent for the last 6 hours? Like,
sometimes I believe it, but you've got to have some healthy skepticism, haven't you?
yeah. And then I guess in a way, like, at least they're still agreeing with you, so that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Even if they're trying to like
share the credit
and like, yeah, basically, like, you're welcome for my idea.
It's like, all right, at least you're backing it up. Whatever gets done. I was going to say something, I've gone. Yeah, so I agree with you in terms of like, you don't always know. It's the problem sometimes, because you might think someone's being sexist, but then you're like, I'm not sure if it's sexism or if it's just like a clash of personality or if you're having a bad day or if you're just a dick in general.
Yeah. And like in music as well, like especially when you like in originals bands where like music's being written and everyone's like coming up with a part, like it does get like a bit subjective, so it is hard to tell, like, you know, are they really disagreeing with me because like I'm a young woman, or are they disagreeing with me because like, they've got different musical tastes? And I think it's like in that setting it's hard to tell, and it is a bit of like speculation. But there's a outside of like playing in like music projects, like there are times in like my day job, like my previous day job, like where like it's very obvious that someone is being like massively sexist, but that hasn't carried over into like any of like my musical ventures, thankfully.
I think to be fair, I think a lot of people, if they really had a problem with having a woman in the band, they just wouldn't have a woman in the band in the first place.
Yeah.
So you kind of avoid those issues generally, like the kind of overt sexism. Obviously there's still some kind of unconscious stuff going on sometimes, but yeah, I don't think you would run into that problem with somebody who had that big of an issue, because you just wouldn't make music together, would you?
Yeah. And then some of the groups I've been in as well, like I've actually found like some of like the men are actually not more feminine than the women, but more like emotional. Like, so like our singer in Boxcar Mavericks, Dwayne, he's very like emotional like guy, and he gets really passionate about songs, and he's written some songs that are about like personal things. And you know, if we're rehearsing and we play through it in like a way that just like blows him away, like he'll get like tearful.
Aww.
And because it like means that much to him, but like you'd kind of think like, you know, that's what the women would do. So like, yeah, that's interesting as well, because I guess that, I don't know, like it's not like I'm trying to word this. Like it helps with the balance, because even though there is more men in that band, like actually like one of those men's actually, yeah, it was one of the men is like kind of down with his emotional, like feminine emotional side. I don't know if that's the best way to word it, but like, yeah, it's like it like levels it out a bit, because
yeah, the dynamics, I guess.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think I feel like a lot of men who do make music, especially if they write music, are probably a little bit more, not necessarily in touch with, but more willing to express their feelings.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I meant.
Yeah. it's an artist thing, isn't it? We're passionate.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a little bit emo, but I'm going to make it useful.
Yeah.
That's my view anyway. I can't speak for everyone, but so I guess getting a bit more specific about being a drummer and being a woman, wondering if you've had any sort of effects impacted, you know what I mean, like experiences of being kind of impacted by that. If anybody's ever like, do you have people who are like, oh wow, like you're a woman and you play drums? Like that's amazing. Or
Uh,
a woman
yeah.
drums.
So I remember like this really like embarrassing moment at school where we used to have external music examiners come in whether there was like practical music exams, and we'd put them in the sort of auditorium theatre room because that's where there was enough space for all the crap basically. But that room was used for like the general assemblies in the morning. And so the assembly people, like kids, were all clearing out, and the music teacher had sort of said to us like, oh, like start taking all the kit, the drum kit and everything through to the theatre. So they're carrying all this stuff in and like setting up all the cymbals and all the kit. And I remember I was adjusting the seat and putting the bass pedal on, and like this sort of chavvy group of kids that like obviously didn't want to go to their class, like kind of like shouted like, "Oh, girls can't play drums," and it was just like
Bitch, watch me.
Yeah, it was just such a stupid thing to say because it's like I'm literally about to sit a music exam and get a very good mark, so you could not be more wrong. But yeah, it was just like it was really embarrassing at the time, but then I kind of like thought about it quite rationally after. Like, you know, it's this school with like, you know, I don't know how many kids were in my school, but you know, it was hundreds of us plus like hundreds of teachers, and I was like, am I really going to let one like chav like ruin my day or put me off playing drums? And I think like one of the boys that was like helping me set up that day, like even like sort of said afterwards, like, I don't know why he said that because like he doesn't play anything. So it's just such a stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
But then that was like the only example I could think of. But then I was checking up on I used to have a YouTube channel that I'm not active on anymore, but it's still there, and I checked it out the other day, and like some of the comments are a bit like, oh, you get extra points for being a chick drummer, and there was like one comment that said like, oh, even if I was blind and I was listening to this, I'd still be impressed whether I knew you were a girl or not. And then there was like another comment saying like, oh, it must be really hard for like girls to play, like how do you reach the pedals? And it's like, well, I have legs and an adjustable
Men are short
seat.
too.
Yeah.
Not all men at all. Oh no, those comments are like, those are annoying because sometimes you can tell they're like well-intentioned, but they've just been worded in such a backhanded sort of complimenty way that you can't take it as a compliment.
Yeah, and like those comments,
really good.
Yeah, they were from like sort of 9-10 years ago. They're not recent comments, but I guess like reading them in text as well, you don't really get like you say like whether they were meant in like a sarcastic way or. And then because I had a big break from, that's probably when I stopped. I didn't stop playing because of that, but it was around like that sort of decade, like sort of 2010-ish, that I kind of stopped playing so much. And then when I came back to it, like probably about like 10 years later, like,
oh wow, yeah,
and playing live. Yeah.
Damn. Oh, then, never known.
Yeah, I didn't really, I was just busy. I didn't really play. But when I did come back to playing, like when we play at shows, like people will come up afterwards and say like, oh, like a great show, like to all of the band. And then I might get like sort of specific people come up and say like, oh, I really loved your drumming. And like a lot of those people are men. And like what, like one sort of man has even said like, oh, it's so great to see like more female drummers. Like it's really great. Like I think he was a drummer himself, and that's kind of why he said it. But like that, he kind of reference the female drummer thing in a really nice way. Yeah. And then when I look back at the YouTube comments, I kind of think like, well, maybe they didn't mean it in like a patronizing way, but it's just read really patronizing.
Yeah, it's a tough one with that, isn't it?
Yeah. And I don't know if I just don't notice it as much anymore because I'm older and don't care.
Yeah, sometimes you get to a point, don't you, where you just have to like make it background noise, so you just don't notice it anymore.
Yeah. And like I've never at a show had anybody be like say anything based on being a girl. Like I think sometimes I think there was like one particular gig where like I remember like a sound tech just being like super arsey, like And I was kind of like, is this because like there's like girls on the stage? But then I saw him shouting at like a massive guy later on as well, and I was like, oh no, you're just really grumpy.
I'm trying to think, was that one with when me and you were still in the band together?
Yeah, in Bristol.
I've spoken to multiple people about this because I think he was being a dick. I do. I can't say for sure whether he was being sexist, but he definitely treated me and Shah differently than he treated the boys in the band at the time. And he was definitely rude to Claire. But
I saw him shout at someone else though, because he shouted at me because when we finished our sound check, I didn't clear my kit away because the band that were on before us that were about
using
to do
your
this,
kit,
because he was at uni and he couldn't get home to get his stuff, and I said, oh, it's fine, like you can use our stuff, and he was like, why have you left all this shit up here, like you have to come remove it? And I was like, oh, he's using my things actually. And then he was just like,
asked nicely.
Didn't like apologize or anything, just went like, oh, we're walked off. But then I saw him, I think he was just shout at someone else.
Yeah, I think he was just either in a bad mood or generally is a dick. But yeah, based on my own sort of what I witnessed, I was like, oh, like he might be a little bit sexist too.
I get it's like it must be like a stressful job, like especially when you've got like
people were late as well,
4 bands, and you've only got like half an hour to sound check everyone, and then you stuck on the first band because they're like, oh, could I have my makeup, or could I have like just being like really demanded, and then you've got less and less time to do the others. But then I've been to shows with the same setup where their sound people have been like really, really friendly and like helpful.
Yeah, the thing is as well, like taking out on the bands that were there on time and are cooperating isn't a good look. Like if you're going to be a dick to anybody, be a dick to the person who's delaying you, but like also you're a professional, just don't be a dick if you don't have to be.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know, obviously I've never been in that situation, so I can't say for sure how I'd act, but I'd like to think even if I was a little bit like snippy or whatever, that I would still be like helpful and professional. I don't know. The more I hear about different people's experiences of that night, the more I think maybe he overall was probably just stressed or an asshole, but I definitely think there was he was an older guy, so I'm thinking underlying sort of maybe not even conscious, like thinking girls.
Maybe it's because we were young people.
Yeah, we were all younger
youngsters
as well.
Coming in here being a pain in my ass.
And I definitely look younger than I am as well. So he was probably like, this fucking kid. I'm like, sir. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that guy. And I haven't played any other shows there, so I wouldn't be able to like gauge other nights with him or anything like that. So it's hard to say. Also, kind of on a tangent, but have you ever had a girl sound tech? Because I've only ever had one once. Well, twice, but one was specifically a women's music night, so.
I've never had a girl sound tech. I think we've dealt with like female organisers and promoters, like literally like twice. But no, I've never seen. Do they exist? Musical creatures?
I had one I can confirm. They do exist. I had one in Worcester and she was really good. I think that show we were dealing with a female promoter as well. And that was probably one of the shows that we really felt like the most welcomed. There was a little bit of an issue of actually knowing if the show was going ahead or not. But once we got there, they were really, really nice. They paid us and everything. And it was like, not many people were even there because we didn't know until quite last minute if it was actually going ahead. We couldn't really promote it either. But yeah, like even still, they were like, oh yeah, like we'll pay you, like you traveled up, blah blah blah. And I was like, that was really cool. Like you didn't have to do that. This was a free show. It was cool. They were great. I would definitely go back.
Cool.
I did also put if it's more of a general question rather than specifically about that, but if you've had any kind of experiences around your sexuality. I don't know how open you are about it. Like, obviously, you're not going to walk into a room.
No one knows. Shush.
Hello.
Get this out.
You walk into a room. Nice to meet you. I am gay. That's how you introduce yourself, right?
Yes. And then I tell them my name.
Yeah, no, you have to lead with your name doesn't come first.
No. I don't think that being gay makes a difference at all. Obviously, it makes me fabulous.
Yeah.
I wish it did make a difference. Like, could make me play better.
I get, to be fair, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, and it's not something like that you need to, that you have any real reason to be that outspoken about for anybody to give you any backlash, I suppose.
And just in general, like even away from music, like just life in general, I've been really lucky to not really ever have experienced like any like homophobia, like particularly badly. I've like had a bit like jokey comments, and I've been walking along holding hands with a girl, and like someone shouted at a window like lesbians. Like,
yes.
Like, what do I say back? Like, you are correct. Like, I'm not gonna turn around and just be like, no, I'm not. Shut up. Like, yeah. Like, but I don't think that I've ever been like, mistreated in a job or any like musical projects. And like you said about like the people not wanting to have girls in their band, like if they didn't want to have a gay person in their band, I'd be like, okay, I'll just leave.
Yeah, I mean that's literally the same. That's why whenever I meet new people, like I joke like, hi, nice to meet you, but like I kind of do, I'll try and like bring it into conversation, usually as a joke, just to be like, right, how are you going to react to this? Are you going to pass the vibe check?
Yeah, I guess it's good to like kind of drop it in early on, because then you can find out if someone's got a problem with it. Like,
yeah.
It's interesting you say that though about like dropping it in, because I don't think I didn't realize you were gay like when we played in More You Know for like months.
Really?
Yeah.
I always think I'm obvious.
I can't even remember like how it like became confirmed. But I was just like, because I thought that you were going out with your friend Jack.
Yeah,
because you were going on holiday with him, and I was like, oh yeah, he's her boyfriend. And then you were like, what? No.
Jack's lovely, but I wouldn't. No, Jack. No, yeah, I do get that a lot actually, because I have had a lot of like close male friends, and people have been like boyfriend. I've been like, no. I remember once I went to I think the Costa near my old work, and this woman was like, oh, I saw you and your boyfriend at McDonald's or something the other day, and I was like, my what? I was like, have I even spent any time with any men recently? And I was like, it was me and Ryan on our way to practice. I was like, no, he doesn't bang me. He bangs the drums. I didn't say that. I was like, no, he's my drummer. But then I told Ryan, I was like, this was the joke I wanted to make, and he was like, excellent.
It's a good joke.
Thank you. I have such excellent jokes that I often have to keep to myself. I'm like, no, it's not appropriate.
Do you keep like a little book of them so that you can just wait for the perfect moment to get them in there?
I share them with my friends because I know they'll appreciate them. I remember this time that like, this is completely off topic, but I just think it's funny. This time when I was working at Tesco still, and this guy bought like, I think he bought some Prosecco or Amaretto or something. I was like, oh, that looks good. And he was like, right, that's my evening sorted. I'm going to drink that. I'm going to watch Strictly. And he was like, I'm not gay or anything. And in my head, I was just like, that makes one of us. I was just like, I was like, I don't care. It's like, I don't care if you are. It's not business. But I just thought it was really funny. Yeah, I've been quite lucky as well, to be honest. But I think it kind of just depends on your attitude, because if you kind of don't give anybody any room to be an asshole, they don't feel comfortable being an asshole. I've been lucky to have like good friends as well, though, who just haven't cared. In the good way, haven't cared.
Yeah, I don't care about you.
So, it's good to like know you've got that backup in case you need it, but I've never really needed it. Like, the only people who've ever made comments to me have been people I didn't like anyway, so I didn't care.
No.
So back on topic. Kind of same question really, but like in terms of being into rock and heavy, I know you're into like a range of music like me, but I know like you and I are both quite into like rock and heavy music. And is that is your t-shirt The Last of Us?
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I just noticed, I was like, that looks like Ellie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to interrupt myself, apparently. Yeah, like we're both into like rock and heavier music like that. That tends to be more, I don't want to say male dominated, but it tends to be more considered a boys sort of thing to like. Obviously not as much now, but you know, a lot of if people don't know anything about rock, they'll be like, oh, you know, boys like rock, you know.
Yeah. Or they think that it's like super heavy, like metal screams and stuff,
yeah.
and it's
People
just
who listen
not.
to
It's
no
like,
rock who think the softest thing is heavy. I'm like, sir,
yeah.
wait. Yeah. Have you had any kind of experiences that speak to positive or negative, or just anything you think is notable?
No, I never really had any like negative stuff. When I was at school, like there was like a good mix of like boys and girls that were into the same sort of music, and I wasn't allowed to go to some of the gigs, but I know like a lot of people went to see Slipknot, and you'd think that would be like all the boys, but no, I bet there was probably about like 6 out of like that group of, I think there was about 15 of them altogether went, like almost half of them I think was girls. But I think it's like at that age as well, it's like a friendship thing, like you make friends with people with similar interests, so you're going to go and do those things together. And
and you don't really care about gender when you're younger either. I mean, when you're a little kid, it's like, no, boys are loud and stuff like that, but like, you do get to a point where it's like you don't really care, you don't really notice that there's a difference, which is good. We should keep that. Let's keep the kids ungender normed. Is that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, same really. I had like, I think it's to do with like subculture as well, I guess, because it's more like you guys versus the people who think you're weird than boys versus girls or anything like that when it comes to being into certain subcultures, I think. So you kind of put that sort of silly stuff aside. You're like, I don't care what gender you are, we're friends and we like the same thing. And as well, I guess being a girl who is into that, you probably also have other girls who like that stuff gravitate to you, maybe. Like if it had been a group of all boys, you might get 1 or 2 girls, but I feel like if there's already a girl in the group, another girl might be like, oh, you know, they already hang out with this girl who likes this stuff, so it's probably okay for me too.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know though. Like sometimes girls are like, oh, I can't be the other girl, like I'll be seen as like a threat, because girls get pissed against each other for some reason.
I mean, you do get, it's just like personality types, isn't it? Because there's like groups of girls at school that they would dare to go up and like be like, oh, hi to, because you know you assume that they turn around and be like fuck off. But maybe they might not, but it's just when there's like a sort of exclusive group of girls at school, I would definitely have been like less likely to go and sit with them and listen to their music, because the boys would probably be listening to better music.
I was always more interested in what the boys were doing anyway, because like, I don't know, like in primary school, I was like playing football with the boys because I wanted to play football, and only the boys were playing football. Well, there was 1 or 2 other girls, but it wasn't a regular thing. I think you're right as well, and especially in primary school and secondary school, where people are more kind of bitchy and more like cliquey, and it's like that's against you. Whereas once you get to like university and stuff, everybody's just like, who fucking cares?
Yeah, and then everybody's like super into music by that age in some form. So
yeah. Oh, it's so much better being an adult. God. When I was a kid, I was like, I don't want to grow up, and now I'm like, no, it's better. Mostly.
Yeah, apart from the bills and responsibilities.
Oh yeah, no, we don't like the responsibilities, but you got to trade something, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a good trade for like being able to do what you want within the law, obviously, like all the time.
Oh no, definitely. I think, like you said, personality and stuff like that, and age does play a role in that sort of thing. Just maturity. So I never know how to phrase this, or like I'm never even wholly sure what I mean by this question, but I just like to ask it anyway in case there's anything interesting to talk about in regards to it. But I guess you're probably quite a good person to ask, actually, because you, like me, are probably quite likely to go to or engage with different music types rather than just like, I only like rock and that's all I listen to. But we've kind of touched on it, but like differences in like gender in different genres. So we kind of talked about pop being more kind of open or like female dominated. But like if you, I don't know how many like pop shows you've been to compared to rock shows, but like I know obviously it's stating the obvious, but I will notice there's more women at like a pop show than at a rock show. But again, that depends on the band even as well. And I asked this question like I have anything to say about it because I've never paid that much attention to it. But like, say if you went to see a band that had a woman in it, do you notice that there's maybe more of a gender balance in the audience? And like, do you think, I don't know, being a woman in a band is like, oh, you know, she like, we're same, like, because there'll probably be other women there. Like, I don't know how conscious any of these thoughts are for people, including myself.
I think, keeping in mind this was when I was about like 12 years old, the only concert I've been to where it was just like girls everywhere was I went to see Boyzone when I was like a kid. And it was literally just like teenage girls, like young girls with their mums, and then like loads of gay men.
The best kind.
Yeah. But that's obviously because that's what kind of band they were, and they were singing all the poppy ballads, and like everyone screaming, like wanted to marry them when they grew up.
My sister still wants to marry them.
Which one?
He likes Ronan.
Oh, I liked Stephen, but
I liked Stephen too. Poor guy.
But like when I go to see like more local shows, because the majority of shows I go to see would be like local bands, or like I might pop over to like the O2 in Bristol to see not a huge band, but a band it's got like a bigger following.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of mixed, I think. And the only other one that I've been to where there seemed to be a few more women was, I think Frog and Fiddle did a like International Women's Day like sort of special gig, and like every band had at least like, you know, one woman there, and so there was a few more women out that night, I think, just because of what that event was. But yeah, I don't think I've even when you go and see a band where all the like band members are guys, still seem to have some females there, even when they're like heavier music.
Yeah, no, definitely. I had a point and then I completely forgot it. I was gonna say like, I know some people will be like, you know, I a lot of my favorite bands like aren't exclusively like mixed or female fronted or anything like that. I like whatever I like, but I am more likely to check out a band if I know there's a woman in it. And it's not just like, oh, I'm only going to listen to music with, but I'm like, I'm going to give it a chance because I need to, and I need more of it in my life as well, because the music that I listen to is quite male dominated. So I do need to pick up on those few women that do come through, just to be like, you know, if I like them, I want to show them my support, because they might need that extra support. And the more that you show that these bands are marketable and will have followings, the more women are going to come through in bands like that.
Yeah,
I think, because like I remember when there was like not really any women in pop punk or the emo scene or whatever, and then Paramore were really big, and then there was like a bit of an influx of more female fronted bands coming through. And even if they were just trying to capitalize on that, oh, people like to listen to women in rock bands, it still is useful because you have then more role models or more bands to choose from. You don't just have to like the one female fronted band, which is Paramore, which I love, don't get me wrong, but
yeah, they're a good band.
Yeah, I do love them. I will never say I don't. Like, I always get the I always have like the mixed feelings about the Paramore comparison, because I'm like, listen, if it's a genuine comparison, I'm flattered, but if you're only comparing us to Paramore because I'm a girl, then I can't take it as an actual compliment, because
yeah,
it's weird. A lot of like female fronted bands, like, they sound like Paramore. It's like, they really don't. Like, they really don't. You're just like,
I think you guys have got like a really like, obviously you've got like influences in there, but I think you've actually got a really different sound to Paramore, because you guys are a bit more like jolly and like happy and optimistic with it, and they've had some like kind of dark, like angry songs, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, most of my songs are like sad or angry, but they sound fun. Yeah, they sound fun, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
Like, this is a song about how much I hate this person, but let's dance. It's gonna be fun. No, yeah, I think thank you, by the way, I appreciate that.
No worries.
I think it is like, I always say, like, I benefit from how much different music I listen to, because I may be ripping something off, but I'm always ripping so many different things off that it doesn't sound like I'm ripping one specific thing off, which is great. I'm like, this might sound like this, but this and this sound like this and this, so it's fine. It all comes.
Yeah, it's actually a brand new thing made of like 67 other different things,
which is everything, really. If we want to get down to it, if we really want to analyze everything.
Like having to like write this essay in uni about, like, it was like, all creation is recreation. Discuss.
It's postmodernism, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's nothing new, but that's okay, because everything is also new, because there's stuff that gets kind of forgotten about for a while and then comes back in. And, you know, there's
sometimes
always
you come up with stuff and you weren't even aware that it was already similar to something else.
Yeah,
so, like,
no, exactly. Yeah, because there's only so much you can come up with. There's only so many, chords and notes and rhythms. There's always going to be something that sounds like something, because everybody's always making something.
Yeah.
You never know, that people might have made like somebody might have written Bohemian Rhapsody before it was Queen,
Yeah.
You never know. Just because they didn't make it big doesn't mean it didn't exist. True. I'm not, just for the clarification of the audience, I am not insinuating that Bohemian Rhapsody was in any way ripped off from anyone. Just in case. But as an example. Anything else on that subject, or would you like to move on?
No, I feel like I'm a bad person to ask on that last subject, because I've got like I'm quite mixed with teams that I work with in my day job and like friends that I have like in my personal life, and apart from family, like I've got all sisters. I don't really have. I've got a brother-in-law, but I don't have any brothers. But yeah, I'm always around like men and women. I'm not like one of those like girly girls that likes to have like girly nights with all my girlfriends with like wine and whatever.
I like the best of both worlds. Yeah, like honestly, it's kind of, I don't know, like counterproductive, I think, to, I mean, it's good for people to have those sort of separate spaces when they're in the same sort of mindset, but I think it's more of like it's maybe for people who are kind of more entrenched in like gender norms and gender expectations, who think like, oh, especially like, I don't know, straight people probably, who are like, I can't be friends with a man because he's a man. It's like, you can be friends with whoever you want.
But then I also think that can be down to like if they have like a jealous partner, like if you're like a straight woman in a relationship and you have always had male friends, then your partner's not really got a say, really.
Yeah.
But maybe if you suddenly started having like, like a bit, why hang out with these boys all the time? What are you doing? Like, whereas, I don't know, because I'm gay, like.
Yeah, mood.
I could have male friends. That's hilarious.
I don't understand it, so I can't see it. But like, no, I totally get, like, that is a possibility for sure. But again, I also think that's just kind of a result of gender norms and expectations again. Because, like, I was thinking about this the other day because it pissed me off how, like, if somebody is quite young and like realizes they're gay or something, and they're like, people are like, you're too young to know. But like, if a like little boy and a little girl are friends, it's like, oh,
they're gonna get married.
It's a boyfriend, they're gonna get married. It's like, they're two, Karen.
Yeah, like, you don't know.
It's like, who's really sexualizing the children here? Because I don't think it's the LGBTs, honey.
Yeah.
But, you know. Maybe I'm biased.
Yeah, I don't see many Karens at gigs. That's an interesting point. I think like one or two.
They think it's devil music, that's why.
Yeah, what's this? Put some Westlife on.
I was gonna say they think anything but the Mr. Bubble is hell music. I thought I had something to say, but in classic Joe form, I forgot, so it's fine. So the next one is, we've kind of spoken about it, but just in case there's anything else you wanted to say on the matter. And I can't necessarily say I have either, but I like to ask just in case people do have stories. If you've ever been made to doubt your abilities or your place in a music environment because of your gender. That you think
no, I'd say like just that one comment that sort of kid shouted across the theatre of go. But I did think afterwards, like, actually that was a really dickish thing for him to do, because we were setting up like for like exams. So if I had been not as thick skinned, I could have been like, you know, in tears, like, oh, I don't want to do my exam. But like, so that's like my one time, but it like made me doubt it for about, you know, like 3.5 seconds. I'm more likely to doubt my ability if, I don't know, we had a show lined up next to like a super amazing band, and like, oh my god, they're so good, like I'll never be like that. But I don't think that anyone should really compare themselves, or you will put yourself off playing. Like, everybody's different, everybody plays at a different level. Like, don't you know, compare and despair with what everyone else is doing. Just do what you do, really.
No, I agree. And it's all down to taste as well, isn't it? Because you could be the most amazing musician ever, but somebody might prefer somebody who does something a lot more basic, and that's absolutely fine, because it's just what speaks to them, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I've kind of like, you kind of brought up a point that I've spoken about with Amy, who's the bassist in Down and Out, of like doubting yourself more than other people. Like, it's not necessarily other people's comments or anything, but it might be like maybe imposter syndrome, or I don't know if it's like exactly related to being a girl, because I'm sure men experience it too. But yeah, it's like more doubting your own ability, which I know is something I do. I'm more like, I've never actually had anybody be like, oh, you're shit, or like, you shouldn't be doing this, you're not good. But I'll be like, I'm shit, I shouldn't be doing this, I'm not good.
Yeah, but then sometimes you have to like if you are ever feeling like that, especially like if you like leading up to a show and like you get really nervous and anxious, sometimes you have to like just kind of like pause and think like, wait, we can't be that terrible, or we wouldn't be having a show at all.
Yeah, like my bandmates wouldn't be in this band if they didn't want to be, and like, yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of like one of the reasons I don't really get nervous for shows either. Like, I do a little bit, but not like to the point where I think it will mess me up, because I'm like, if I mess up, I'm letting down the rest of the band who worked really hard to make these things that I've brought to them sound good. So then if I'm the one who lets them down when I'm the one who is like, let's do these songs, like, how are you supposed to convince the rest of the band to, I don't know, believe in themselves if they're doubting themselves, if you're like not even believing in the things that you've brought to the table? I don't know.
I think you have to be like, just learn to like relax yourself, and if that means, like, for me that might mean like, you know, having like a shandy or something like when I get to the gig. Like, just even though there's like hardly any alcohol in it, like, it's just the relaxing feeling that it gives me, so that I feel a bit more chilled. Because if you go on stage anxious, like, if you feel awkward and anxious, like, unless you're really good at hiding it, like, other people are gonna see that you're awkward and anxious. So better to just do what you have to like, just like chill yourself and calm yourself and give yourself a talking to, like, oh, you know, it's you know, it's just a gig. It's just a chilled gig.
Yeah.
With, like, your friends are here, and, or if you don't have friends, you don't even know these people. Like, they won't remember if you mess up.
Well, as well, like, you'll probably find a lot of the people in the audience are kind of just impressed that you've had the guts to go up there and do it. Because if they're not musicians, and well, if they're musicians themselves, they'll probably appreciate the situation you're in. And if they're not, they'll just be impressed that you can do something they can't do.
Yeah.
And then you might get the occasional dickhead, but they can't do what you can do. Like you said, like that boy said to you when the other guy was like, girls can't play drums. He was like, don't know why he'd say that. He can't play anything.
Yeah, because he doesn't play
exactly
anything,
that. That's exactly like, that's the best response, I think, that he could have probably given you at the time. Like if he'd said that to me, I'd been like, that's a really good point. Like, yeah, what's he doing?
Yeah. I think like recently I did start to feel more anxious about gigs because we, like, obviously the whole lockdown, like, we didn't really have gigs for ages, and then when I joined up as a girl, that was kind of like about 6 weeks or so before like Joel was offered a gig, so I was more nervous about that because it was something I hadn't done in a long time, or felt like a really long time. And it was a new band, new songs, and Joe and Alex are like super like great on their instruments, and it's like you said, like, I didn't want to let them down, and I'd also had to learn to play to a backing track and to a click track, which I hadn't done before either. So it was all these new things, so that was kind of a harder thing to keep calm for, because I was kind of aware, like, oh, if I mess up, like, this would be a really bad first gig. So yeah,
that's quite a short time as well, I feel like, to learn like a collection of new original songs.
Yeah,
if it was
which
like
obviously I knew their
others,
songs because I'd listened to the EP and I'd been to like previous shows that they had played. But yeah, I was just like aware that they're both like really amazing players, and like, don't fuck up.
But
Like,
then that comes back to, like, they wouldn't have brought you in if they didn't think you were at least just as good as them, or had something to bring to the table at the very least.
Yeah, that's true. Like, they wouldn't have approached me in the first place.
They approached you. Exactly. Like, hold on to that.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly it. Like, yeah, you have to think like that, don't you? Of like, well, you know, they wouldn't have asked me to play if they didn't think I was capable of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep that mindset, because you can so easily spiral and just stop enjoying it or stop wanting to do it altogether if you let yourself get too much in your own head. Is usually what it is as well. It's not even outside influences. And yeah, I think going a long time without playing shows as well can definitely do that. Like, I've been quite lucky that I've felt quite like in the lockdown from like March to August or so, I actually wrote quite a few songs that I was really quite happy with because I had the time to kind of sit down with them. But I feel like if I hadn't written anything, or if I just hadn't felt very inspired, like I'm sure some people probably didn't, I don't know how great I would feel about going back and doing music.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough one, because I've just been lucky that I've actually done well with that sort of downtime. But some people might go fucking crazy and just be like, I don't have any focus or inspiration.
I did start to get like quite like irritated by things like when we couldn't, like, because like Boxcars haven't met up for a long time because we've got like some like vulnerable family member sort of situations amongst our group where, you know, it's not safe for us to meet up even when it is allowed. But yeah, like when it was clear that, you know, we couldn't meet up at all, and not having like any, like, because I have like all the instruments under the sun in this house, and like I can go and play like piano for something to do, or like grab a guitar, or
drums is definitely the hardest one to play at home, isn't it?
I think I do have an electric kit, but I don't really play it very often because I feel like the neighbours can still hear it.
I was gonna say, you don't want to piss off your neighbours in lockdown.
Yeah, but yeah, like that wasn't enough for what, because I'd been sort of used to being in bands and like having like friendships and like a social side to playing music, that like when it was like clear that we couldn't do anything, like was a bit like, that did make me a bit irritable.
Yeah, you get a bit restless, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were quite lucky that we did have a little period of time where we could all meet up. But then we also had, like, on top of everything else, we had some like other health issues that weren't to do with COVID, that stopped us being able to practice as full bands. But I think that's also partly what motivated me to like write in lockdown, was that I wanted to keep things for people to be excited about, even when we couldn't be playing together. I was like, oh, if I write a really good song, like that might renew some kind of morale and motivation for people, even though we can't do what we were planning on doing, because we had like recording lined up and stuff. So I think that's definitely helped me. And like just in general as well, even before that, it was like knowing that other people had expectations of me, and I had to like have stuff of a quality to, I don't know, keep them excited. It pushed me to improve, which I thought was good, which it wasn't something I had so much when I was playing on my own, because I was the only motivating force there. And if I didn't think a song was that good, what was going to motivate me to make it better? But now I'm like, oh, I want Ryan and Amy and Shah to be excited about this song, so I'm going to make sure it's good.
Yeah, and then I guess you could like send them like a demo, and then they can like play along with it and like start thinking about what their part will be when you do get back together, and then you kind of good to go for things to do when it is allowed again.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do actually. I think especially Ryan listens to them a lot because he can't play at home, but he can think about what he's going to do.
Yeah.
So then like a lot of the time we will then get to practice, and he'll like after a song he'll be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to play for this. I'm like, how do you do this in your head? I couldn't do that with a guitar part. I'd have to be like sit down for an hour and be like, let me find the note. But you know, as long as it works for him. It's very impressive actually, because he does not, like, most of the time we've been in a band, he hasn't had a kit at home to practice on, so I've been impressed by his manifestation, I suppose.
A lot of the time, if I want to keep up, like when I was learning like Deaf as a Girl stuff, I actually had an app on my iPad.
Yeah, he used to use that as well. Yeah.
Like having to do like the snare drum with one finger, the bass drum with another, but it was better than nothing.
Yeah, even if you've just got like that thing to like convert the thought into an actual sound. Yeah, definitely. We bought him a little, like one of those little training pads as well for his birthday. So cool. Then at least you can kind of keep sort of like
all the rudiments and stuff up.
Yeah, because even just like being able to keep some of that muscle memory of
definitely
be helpful for sure, because you know we've all been lucky that we can all play our instruments easily in lockdown. We can, you know, I can just pick up a guitar and and I can just sing whenever, but I don't know what I would
sing right now.
I'm going to sing right now. Not What is your, I suppose, opinion on the importance of like shows, festivals, blogs, etc., that kind of focus on making sure that female and LGBT talent are like considered fairly and get that spotlight and get that exposure that they might not always get in like a mainstream. I don't know how I'm trying to word this, but I think you know what I mean.
I think it is important to make sure that shows are, and like, you know, organisers, promoters, etc., are like doing all they can to fairly represent, you know, even if their show is dedicated to a certain genre, they're obviously not going to bring in like a ska band if they're doing a metal show, are they? But to make sure that they're giving mixed bands and like women like fair representation in the lineups. But I'd also say, as long as it didn't get to a point where it was like the shows like women only, and then you kind of you being so inclusive that you're actually excluding people, because the last thing I would want to do is like, you know, go to a festival or a show and it just be like
not feel welcoming.
Yeah, or like just be like solely like women bands, you know, if they had like room for like, you know, 50 bands, and out of the like 500 that applied or something, if they were kind of like just pinging all the male bands up, like I wouldn't want like good talented musicians that are like right event and that audience to be like kind of dismissed just for not being women or from like a sort of minority set. Like, so I think my point is like as long as it's like even and fair and it's like a real mix of everything and not just we're going to do an exclusive event that's, you know, just for people called
Fred,
Sandra or something.
Yeah.
Like, and everybody has to be a woman and everybody has to have like blonde shoulder length hair and I don't know, like
yeah, it gets to a point where it's too exclusive. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, but it would be like nice to see a show where there was, you know, a mixture of like maybe some bands that were all male, some that were all female, some that were mixed, some that were mainly women with a male front person, or all men with a female front. Like to just like really like mix it up and like nice and like open for everybody, but still making sure that you bring it in maybe slightly bit more of like the less represented people to like kind of step them up.
Yeah, bring the balance.
That's it. Yeah,
I think that's exactly it, isn't it? It's hard to balance that because these things only need to exist in the first place because there is that disparity and well, like it's male dominated and it's white dominated and it's straight dominated in a lot of genres. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, it's difficult because it kind of has to exist because of the way things have been. But it's one of those things where you kind of, me and Amy said this, where it's like you want it to get to the point where it's not necessary anymore. So like it's kind of strange to be like, this is our festival that we're hoping in a few years won't need to exist in the way it exists now, where it mainly like showcases women or whatever, because we want that to become the norm. So then we aren't a special festival anymore, but that's the point. It's a tough one.
I think as well, like, you know, you might put the feelers out and sort of say, you know, we want to put on a festival and like kind of open it up for people to apply. And, you know, if out of the 100 bands that apply, like 95 of them are male bands, that's kind of showing that, well, yeah, obviously there's more male bands, so you can't like force women to join bands to get the numbers up. So it would, it'd be like a grad, like it wouldn't happen overnight, I guess is what I'm saying, because it might be like in the first year of that festival, you might only have, you know, 5 bands that have got women, and then, but when people come and see those bands that have women in them play, that might influence like people think, oh, I could do that, and then it like inspires more women to join in, and then so the following year, you know, you might have 10 bands, and next year you might have like 30 because people are like, oh, I can do this. Like,
it has that snowball effect.
Maybe they think that they can't because they don't see it often enough. I don't know.
It's representation, isn't it? It's really important. When you don't know how important how important representation is until you don't have it, I feel like. Because people I've noticed a lot of the people who like don't care about representation or don't think it's important are usually like straight white men who always are represented.
Like, if it doesn't affect you, like it's not
a problem.
It's not a problem.
That's the worst. I think the importance of representation, I don't think it can be understated, especially for people who can't guarantee that they're going to be represented at any given time. Something else I was going to say, and once again the sieve of my brain has been like, nope, we don't need that. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I think as well, like making it clear, like you said, like you can only kind of pick from the pool that you're given. So if it is mostly men, it's mostly men. But I think sometimes, I think we spoke about this, or like you might have mentioned this, and it was something I was like, that's a really good point, of when I put my survey out like ages and ages ago, I'm pretty sure this was your answer, saying like you'll find a lot of gigs are like mostly men, but then when it comes to something like International Women's Day, suddenly they're plucking these women out of nowhere. And it's like, is it that, you know, they weren't hiring them before, or were they not putting themselves forward before because they weren't sure if they were going to get a fair kind of shake, or didn't think they were worthy or whatever. But then like, if you've got something where it's like, yeah, we are looking for mainly women, they might feel more confident putting themselves forward. Or I don't know, yeah, just knowing that you are welcome to apply for this and you will be considered, I think can be really helpful. So even like, when you're like looking for bands in general, just kind of be clear, like, we look for diverse acts. I think that can be really important, because sometimes it's just assumed that it's like, oh, we know what you're looking for, we're not going to fit it.
And then you kind of like, you make sure that you put off the wrong people by being open and being like, you know, this is an event where we want, you know, LGBT plus sort of acts, then you're not going to get like massive homophobes applying.
Exactly.
Unless they do it like sneakily and they're going to like ruin your show when they've got the microphone. But
no,
like,
that's it. Yeah, it drives away the wrong people, which is what you want.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because like, I don't know if I've told you about this, but me and my friend / course mate are putting on a virtual festival. But,
virtual festival?
Yeah, so we're getting people to send in like pre-recorded sets.
Okay.
And we're also getting artists to send in like pieces that we can display between sets. Because obviously we can't really do like, you're not going to be like sat around waiting for the changeover during like between sets, but it would be nice to like kind of emulate some sort of in-between set thing of like, you know, maybe we can represent some artists and photographers and stuff like that, and graphic designers who don't always get the credit they're due in the music industry, because it's like you work for exposure bucks, right? But yeah, we're doing that, and basically our kind of like marketing thing has been like, men are welcome, but we mostly want to showcase the talent of women and or LGBT people. But we're not going to turn down men if like they're good and want to get involved, and you can assume that they've got the right mindset if they're willing to get involved with that, and like aren't worried of like, what if somebody assumes I'm gay because I'm the only man here? You know. So I think that's kind of like, I don't want to say like, oh, we've done it perfectly, but like I think that's like a good approach, to just be like, we're mainly looking for this, but we're not going to turn you down if you don't fit that, as long as you're enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely.
There may be something that you've thought of that I just have not in any way mentioned, or hasn't crossed my mind at all.
I think the only other like additional thought that I had was that like, I'm much older now, and I wonder if that is part of the reason why I don't
notice
them, but whether like I'm just like quite chilled, and like I kind of like things that like I've learned to let things go, or learned like who I need to ignore, and
picking your battles.
Basically, and like knowing when something's just not worth like bothering or getting upset by. And I think that might have been why I didn't sort of have maybe as many examples of things as like other people you've chatted to like do have. I think that I'm just from like living and learning, like I'm able to see that some things that I maybe would have thought were examples of, you know, being like discriminated against or treated differently, like I think I'm going to be like, oh, you know, I don't actually have any evidence of that. And, like, I don't know. I think probably has like lots of other examples where I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing as well. Like sometimes you don't either, like sometimes you don't register it as being sexist or anything like that, or sometimes you just can't say that it is, because somebody could just not like you.
Like maybe they just think I'm a prick. Maybe
can't assume that people are just being sexist. They might just not like you.
I wouldn't like you if you were a boy, but
I hate you regardless of gender.
I guess hate your soul.
I don't like the vibe you give. I guess the other thing as well is like, not to point it out, I thought that like it's possible that you've got slightly different. Well, you're a little bit older than me, not much, but you're a little bit older than me.
Like almost 10 years older than me.
Really?
Yeah.
To be fair, sometimes I forget like, other people age. Like, literally, sometimes I'm like, they're 23, right? It's like they were 23 in 2010. I'm like, what?
Because I don't take myself too seriously, so I think sometimes people like when I don't personally think that I look my age. So thank you for not noticing.
No, it's fine. I think that's part of it, isn't it? Like some people think that they have to act a certain way because of their age, and it's just like, who decided that, and why do I have to do what they decided?
Yeah.
Especially if you're like in more creative fields as well. Like there's less kind of pressure to be like, oh, I need to be serious and I need to be like what I think an adult is supposed to be like. It's like, no.
Yeah, like I work in like a pretty like serious industry, but I work in a creative role, so it's helpful to be like playful and silly when you're coming up with, you know, ideas and concepts and stuff. And
yeah,
you know, if you weren't, you might come up with some boring ideas.
I was gonna say, like that's what they want, isn't it? Because they've hired somebody creative because they don't have that capability. So yeah, I my point. I had one. Was that, yeah, like I was wondering if maybe our experiences might have differed because of our age difference, but
yeah,
I think because we're kind of a similar sort of, I think, attitude probably of like not really putting up with people's shit or like just not caring enough to let it linger.
Yeah, definitely. I do think we would have slightly different experiences because
for sure.
Like well, maybe not actually, because at the time I started taking music back up again, like you would have been, we've been active in like gigging and stuff at the same time, so maybe
that's true.
Maybe they wouldn't have been that different, but perhaps like, you know, high school sort of years, like I feel like my school was quite like a closed place. Like I don't know if you were like out at school or anything.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah. See, I'd never have done that at school because there was like a boy in my year that did come out and like he got like bullied quite badly for it, and that obviously would have probably discouraged a lot of other kids from doing the same because they're like, well, I'm clearly just going to get, you know, tons of shit for this. I think that part would have like maybe been like, you maybe had like more supportive like group of like peers and stuff at school perhaps.
I think I was quite lucky in that my secondary school was quite small. We only had like 2 years because we were shutting down. So we all basically knew each other. And obviously had my friends who were chill. And then also I kind of had that like, I don't want to say confidence, but like I was just like, yeah, this is who I am. So what? And I was also a little bit savage when I was like 16, where I was like, I reel it in a lot now because I think I realize now that it was like not like, I guess, a defense mechanism, but I was like, if you're going to be a dick, then so am I. And sometimes I'm going to be a dick before you can be a dick. So, because I know you will be. So I was quite savage. So I think some people were like, oh, fuck, we won't say anything. But then I just also think like it was just a case of nobody actually cared that much. And because I didn't really have anything to do with the people who would have cared in a negative way, it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And then also like I was kind of more open about it in secondary school because I knew everybody. Whereas like when I went to sixth form, it was different people. So I wasn't like, oh, but I wasn't like either, if that makes sense.
You're like walking in with a big like rainbow flag behind you, like, hello.
But I did like to like, I don't know, I liked to make sure that some of the younger kids knew. So then like they knew that they had somebody safe to talk to if they needed to. I wouldn't necessarily know if I could actually help them, but just to be like, oh, like you're not the only one, it's cool. And I hope I helped. I do have like a few younger friends from sixth form who have been like, oh, you know, like that was really helpful. I was like, I didn't really do anything though. Like I was just...
Yeah, but it's like what we were talking about earlier, like when you don't see something, like with the whole music thing, like when you don't see something, don't realize that it's a thing, and then you start seeing it more and more, and you're like, oh, like I can do that. So like we were earlier, like we were talking about it, like from music, like, and then you talk about like when you're in sixth form with like this situation, it's like someone saying like, oh, that's helpful because they maybe hadn't like met anyone that like they felt like comfortable had like done that sort of thing, or like spoken about it like openly, and like it's just about like showing people, like teaching them, I guess, and then inspiring them.
Inspiring them. I'm a role model. No, but yeah, no, that's exactly it. Like, I think I was just kind of like, I mean, I wasn't at the time thinking about it in terms of influencing anybody else, but I was just like, why should I apologize for that when people can just be assholes and they don't have to apologize for that? I'm not doing anything wrong or bad. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I was just kind of like overcompensating to kind of, I don't know, counterbalance the people who might have been assholes. But I was just like, I don't care. Like, if you're not my friend, I don't care.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think in hindsight, I can kind of see now that it was good, like the impact that it would have on people, even just like other straight people just being like, oh, you know, I've got a gay friend. Now I know what that's like, because if they've never like had one before, you can have those preconceptions, can't you? And it's just like, oh no, like she was like this, she was fine. It's like it's stupid that you have to have that, but you know, some people do need that perspective, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like I never really had any issues, which was good. And then I was like, I wouldn't let people get away with shit either, even if they like, I don't know, if they said it by accident, I'd be like, that's not okay. Like, don't say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am glad that I was, if that helped anybody younger than me, because you never know as well. You might not ever hear from anyone who you have helped, because you might not have ever even spoken to them, but they might have just kind of known of you.
Yeah.
And been like, oh, you know, me too, that's cool. But yeah, I happen to like make friends with a few of them because you do gravitate towards each other, don't you?
Yeah.
When you're the only ones. But yeah, actually, like thinking about my sixth form friends now, I'm like, oh wow, quite a few. Especially the ones who were young. Well, most of them were younger than me because I was older when I went to sixth form. But I'm thinking like younger years as well, because obviously there was like younger sixth form years, and then there was like the secondary school kids who liked to hang out in the music room because our music teacher was really cool and was like, come on in, little orphans. Come on in, lost children. My sixth form music teacher was great as well, which was like, I was talking to Charlotte about this because we went to sixth form together, that our sixth form music class was actually quite balanced as well. And I was like, maybe it helps that our music teacher was a woman, because girls might have felt more comfortable being in the class with it. And she's just like a really great teacher anyway, so that probably helped. Yeah, I thought that was cool. And again, it comes down to seeing it and seeing that like a woman can be doing that and not questioning it, and even just making a big deal about it can be good, but making no big deal about it as well can be really good, because it just depends on how you respond to those things, doesn't it? So I'll do like a little sign off thank you, and then we can say like a nice goodbye afterwards if you like.
And then we just hang up as soon as that's
like fuck you. Never speaking to you again.
Get off my show.
So thank you so much for speaking to me, Lyns. It's been really great to catch up with you again and to get your insight and wisdom into some of these things, because obviously, you know, we've got a lot of similar experiences, but you've also got, as everybody, you have unique experiences that I have never had. So it's really fun. I really enjoy these chats with people, especially when it's people who have experiences that I haven't had, or you know, ones I can relate to. But you know, it's good to get these insights from other people.
No, thank you for having me. It's been really good.
I'm so glad you agreed to do it. I was like nervous to ask you, because I've mostly been doing it with people who I was like quite comfortable to ask. But then like a lot of them are people I have some of these discussions with anyway. So it's like, it would just be like the discussions we normally have, but we'll be recording it.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's nice to have like the chance to have these conversations as well, because they don't always happen like in everyday natural conversation.
Yeah, and they can get a bit deep, can't they?
Yeah. That's exactly why I wanted to do it though, because we don't get like this opportunity that much, and sometimes you don't know who you can have these conversations with, even if you want to talk about it. So it's like being there and being like, hey, if you want to talk about this stuff, you can talk about it with me.
Yeah.
It gives people that opportunity, doesn't it? Which I think is
definitely
important. So yeah, thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you.